So we had a meeting the other day, and Simon, myself, and Harvey all agreed that it seems that the pace of innovation in the industry among real estate portals is accelerating. It seems that portals are realizing that in the future, their competition will be based on experience rather than brand, and they're starting to do something about it. If you're listening and you want to do something about it, if you want to improve the experience on your real estate listing site, you should talk to our sponsor, PropTech, who are absolutely at the forefront of making real estate portal experiences better for your users. You can head to PropTech with 2x's.com, or you can hit the guys up on LinkedIn and say that we sent you. Hello and welcome to the PPW pod, bringing you news, views, and interviews from the world of real estate marketplaces. Joined today by Simon Baker. How are you, Simon?
I'm very well, enjoying what's called sun here in Europe. So that's a nice change from the gloomy weather and 5 degrees temperatures.
Yeah, it seems to be sunny indoors as well where you are.
It
Beautifully
is.
well lit room. So sunny, in fact, that it
and
needs a hat to.
Yes. Move on.
And Harvey Hancock in Madrid. How
Very
are you,
good,
Harvey?
thank you. Great to be back for another news roundup.
Yeah, today we've got a news roundup for you. We will begin with a topic that we've spoken about quite a lot, a topic that I have been focusing on almost exclusively for the past month and a half. AI search in real estate. We had some big news this week. We had a big release this week. Harvey, why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, sure. We have a new toy to play with that might be one of the new benchmarks for the industry. It is called Homes AI. It is AI search, speech-to-speech enabled, released by CoStar Group. It's been under embargo for a while. We got a demo last week. It's come out this week, so we can finally talk about it on the record. And we've really enjoyed what we've seen so far, Ed. Those are the basics. I've got plenty of extra details if you want some more.
Yeah, go on. Give us the details.
Okay, so let's take some quotes from CoStar themselves. They've said that this is a transformative experience powered by Microsoft Azure OpenAI. So we now have a speech-to-speech integration. You can now talk to Homes.com and engage in a home search by talking to it. It's quite fast. It's pretty detailed. You can find out about local schools. You can ask it to change some of the pictures that you see on the search results page. You can ask it to remove furniture from a Matterport tour. There's a lot of fun features going on here. I was very lucky to speak on the record with a couple of the people who were closely involved in the project. In an interview last week that I'm going to be writing up and publishing, hopefully in the next week, to give a few more details on what's going on here. But let's add one more quote from CoStar before I hand it over back to you and Simon. Homes AI draws from Homes.com's unmatched depth of property data, Matterport 3D digital twin technology, images, proprietary school data, neighborhood insights, and market intelligence to deliver bespoke guidance that empowers shoppers with the resources and confidence they need to find the perfect home. As I say, we've really enjoyed playing around with this, and it's something that I think a lot of portals around the world are going to be looking at, saying, if we're going to do AI search right, we're going to have to try and do it as best as we can, and Homes.com might well be the benchmark, Ed.
Yeah, thank you, Harvey. I have quite a few opinions and things to say about this because I've spent the last kind of month or so testing all of the AI searches out there. Before I give my opinion on this, Simon, you said you tested it before we came on today. What were your thoughts?
Okay, so like any test you do in life, you're going to do it on something you know, right? Because otherwise you're just going to get results back, and you go, "Oh, that must be right. That must be accurate." Fortunately for me, I decided to have a look in a suburb I know well, a suburb of Golden Beach in Florida, where I actually have a house. Okay, and I started to talk with this. So first of all, what do I like about it? It's engaging. I can talk. I can type, and it's basically ChatGPT mixed up with a property portal. So it becomes an engaged conversation. So that's good, right? So it's now opening the door to people who feel more comfortable in that way to search. I'll talk a little bit at the end about my overall views on this, not just for CoStar, but in general. However, I then said, great, show me the homes for sale in Golden Beach. Okay. Now, it came back to me and said there are 211 homes for sale in Golden Beach, to which I then thought, well, that's pretty amazing because there's only 320 houses in Golden Beach. It just can't, I know it's not true. I know it's not true, right? Fundamentally not true. So then I'm looking at the map, and the map has homes for sale in Golden Beach and has got all these homes around the outside of Golden Beach. So I said, no, just give me Golden Beach, just within the border, the town border. And it keeps giving me homes outside of Golden Beach in a place called Aventura. Okay. And I'm going, no, I don't want them. I want that. So I am having a little bit of a battle now with the AI, right? I'm saying narrow my search, but it keeps coming back with these because then I go and I thought, well, how many houses are there? So then I thought I'd look at Realtor.com, and they've got 36 for sale, which feels more plausible. Even then, I don't even think there'd be 36 really for sale in the market. So what the problem is I don't know what's real. Okay. Except I do know one thing, is that there are probably not 36 homes for sale. That would be 10% of all the properties in Golden Beach, which would be outstanding. Okay. Because I can tell you, people struggle to get into Golden Beach. And there's certainly not 211. Okay. So I'm not sure what's happening here. And I think this goes in the category of data. Okay. And I was having a bit of a quick online chat before with another consultant in the industry who's been playing around with this. And they go, it's great. It's a good step forward. Absolutely step forward. Is it transformative? To be seen. But it's engaging, and I think it's super interesting. However, it's only going to be as good as the data it's got. And if the data returns results that I factually know are not true, then we have a problem. Okay. And I think that's where it becomes quite problematic. Okay. And that's where I'm looking at this. I'm going, nah, something's not right here. And a classic case is it's got a parcel of land for sale for 2.5 million in Golden Beach, which cannot be for sale for 2.5 million. Impossible. The land itself would be 4 to 5. So they're the sort of things I'm looking at and going, wait a second. Is that true or not? Because then I go look at other websites going, it must be on the other sites. Of course, you see. No, doesn't exist. In fact, if I look at, I'll use Realtor.com as an example. I think it's got about not even 30 odd. And now quick looking through, there's a few others here. So in all of this, okay, I think A, it's a great step forward. B, it's only going to be as good as the data it's got. C, I think there's a lot more training that needs to occur to give results that are then actionable around it. Now, Ed, I know you've done a lot of research on this and thoughts. I'd love your opinion on it. But then I want to talk about, in general, more about, is AI going to really transform the way people search, or are we barking up the wrong tree?
So I tested it a while ago. So this layer that they've announced recently, this is the interactive layer. This is the input and output layer rather than the data underneath. They actually had an AI search when I tested it back in January. They haven't updated the data behind this. This is just a new interactive layer. Now, what's really good about it is you can do really cool things, like you can ask it, will my double bed fit in this room? And because it's all, most of the houses on there have got a Matterport, you can literally see the dimensions of the room. You can say, I don't like the decor in this room. Can we decorate it a bit differently? And it will decorate it differently. You can speak to it. We were shown on the product demo, you can speak to it in Spanish or in Russian or whatever, and it understands. And I do like that it's not like a ChatGPT plugin. They've not taken the risk of losing the top of the funnel and putting it on ChatGPT. And I don't particularly like ChatGPT as a user interface for real estate, right? So that's on the positive side. The other thing on the positive side is CoStar does have really good data. They said in that press release that Harvey mentioned, this is backed by our industry leading data, and they do have really good data over it. So when I tested this for lots of different difficult parameters, so things like, does it have high ceilings? It knew exactly how big the ceilings were, and it gave me an actual number. So it quantified, I think, high ceilings as over 7.5 foot, and that was the filter it gave. Brilliant. Most other platforms won't be able to do that. And it did have things like commute times, but it did, there are a couple of, it didn't, what I'll say without giving too many spoilers is that homes.com did not come in the number one position when it came to accuracy. I think it was number 2 or 3, right? They've got a way to go. My suspicion with what you spoke to there, Simon, the kind of inaccuracy, I don't know if it's a hallucination. I'd have to have a look at that particular use case. What they showed Harvey and I was quite laggy and slow, wasn't it, Harvey? It was a bit, if it's laggy and slow during the product demo, you can imagine it's laggy and slow for, somebody in Tennessee with like moderately not great internet.
Could I add a
right?
little bit of context there, which is I think most of the lag
Yeah,
came
okay.
from coming from firstly, it was that there were 2 types of lag. One was when it's interpreting the voice command that it's just got. And secondly is one from when it transposes you from one page to another page. So there's 2 types of lag that can both be worked on there. Anyway, back over to you.
Yeah, my suspicion. So broadly, I really like it. It's comfortably the best UI integration I have seen, because it is truly conversational. It does answer a whole load of parameters, and you don't have to go off the platform. You don't have to go to ChatGPT or whatever. On the downside, yeah, when we saw it, it did lag a bit. And I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect there has been a lot of pressure put on the people building this to get it out in the public as close to or as near after the kind of news cycle of all the investor stuff as possible. That would be my guess without any inside knowledge. I think probably they've put this out 2 or 3 weeks too early when it's not quite ready to basically change the news cycle. But there are a lot of these things coming out. I've had 2 emails today from people putting out new AI searches. It's becoming a really big deal. Simon, I imagine if I've had 2 emails, you've had 5 or 6, right?
Oh, lots of emails, lots of conversations with people around it. But I get, sorry, I'm just going to point a thing, Hattie. The clearly there are some teething issues because I'm just looking at Golden Beach, and there's a development next to Golden Beach, but it's not in Golden Beach. It's in Sunny Isles, and it's called Golden Gate, right? But when I say homes for sale and just in Golden Beach, even from the normal search, it brings in Golden Gate. So I think there's this sort of delineation issue about clarity about borders and so on. What I think is really happening here, and I agree with you, I think these things go through processes of learning, and they're going to learn in the mass market with the thousands of people every minute asking it questions and so on. It'll get better and better. People will then hammer it, right? Go, no, give me that in Golden Beach. No, don't include Aventura. Give me Golden Beach. No, and you're going to keep, because people are going to get frustrated because they're talking to someone or they're typing with someone. But let's take a step back, right? Why are portals rushing to do this? Okay, we've seen, I think Rightmove's got one, which is fundamentally a free text search that converts into fielded parameters. It's not an LLM behind it; just seems to be a free text conversion.
Have you managed to test it? Because I can't trigger the A/B test, and they haven't responded to my email to let me test it.
No. That's just what I hear. But anyway, so let's assume that people are executing this well. The question I was asking myself, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about this, is does AI search work in that? Because there are really 2 sorts of buying behavior. There's a transactional purchase and there's an emotional purchase. Now, 99% of what we do in life is a transactional purchase. Buying an iPhone, buying some glasses, buying AirPods or whatever. It's transactional. I want the AirPods. They're going to cost me $200 or whatever it is. But if I can get them at Amazon for $190 because it's on sale, I'll save my $10 and it'll turn up in a day. Okay, that's a transaction that occurs. Now AI, very good, whether you use something like Manus, you use something like AI agents. And I've done this before. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, where I took pictures of a broken lock in my in one of my doors, and it worked out the type of lock, the brand, etc. And I said, "Great, order it." And it said, "Can you please do a measurement?" Because you have to do a measurement. And then it found the best price. So I said, "I need it to be able to be delivered within 3 or 4 days." Okay, it found one, and it put it in a shopping cart and said, "Click here to enter your credit card details. The rest will happen." That to me is a transactional search. An emotional search, right, for something that you're going to buy, and a merchant is like buying a house. You're not. It's not about speed. It's about comprehensiveness. So when you're buying a house, it's normally a 3-month process, and it's your biggest decision. You're as nervous as all hell. You're probably going to the bank asking for money. You start the process very high. I want to have a penthouse. I want to have this, until reality meets your budget, or your budget meets reality. Okay. And you go, so then you start to compromise. You might compromise location to get the same size house, but in a location that you don't really want, or you might have to compromise the size of the house for the location because you want a kid's school, and so on. That's an emotional journey rather than a transactional journey. The other thing that's very important is that you're always thinking, maybe the next one I find will be even better than the best one I've already found. So you keep searching. Maybe there's something that wasn't on this site that I might miss out on, right? Because you don't buy houses very often. They're a big decision, and you're going to live in the asset. So the asset itself is a big part of your life. Headphones aren't. Transactional. I need them, I use them, I put them down. Oh, I've lost them, I'll buy another pair. Okay. Now, in that process, the more I've really thought about it, is that the art of looking at a list rather than just giving an answer gives someone comfort that they've looked at everything, right? And that when they do buy something, they're not going to have buyer's remorse because they find something that they should have already seen. Okay. Now, when I think about that, what is most important? What is most important is the brand of the portal that's taking you through that process. So a Rightmove, for example, people go, all the houses in the United Kingdom are on Rightmove, and Rightmove has built that brand. REA goes, all the houses in Australia are on REA because they've built that into the brand. And it's very hard, unless you're someone like Properbird or Casafari, to go, no, wait a second, there are all these other listings out there that aren't on those sites, right? But they're technologists and do deep data and so on. So, and if you go to a consumer, they go, Rightmove's got all the listings, and I occasionally check the other site just to see if there's anything else, but I'm pretty sure they're all on Rightmove. That brand and the depth of brand and the 20 plus years, 26 years, nearly 30 years, I guess, of building that brand is going to be very hard for AI to disrupt, because it's an emotional decision, not a transactional decision. And being an emotional decision, it's going to be very hard. And I was looking at a website today in Australia, and it's for a real estate agent called Bresic Whitney. And you go to their website, and they've got a bunch of listings that say only on bw.com.au, which is Bresic Whitney. Okay. And they are purposely not putting those listings on the major portal sites in the hope to get some direct traffic and save on the costs. But I think the portals as they currently are have a long shelf life in front of them. And therefore, the need for Rightmove to truly innovate is still going to be very low. What they need to make sure is they've got the content. And if I was them, I'd be taking my extra EBITDA that I'm now not going to give to my shareholders, and I'd be putting into marketing that said, Rightmove has all the listings. No need to look anywhere else. And people will put up with the traditional search of fields and whatever, so they can get to a list result. versus, oh, I've got to have a sexy AI interface and so on. So I think the AI interface is a nice to have, but is secondary to the power of the brand and what the brand says in someone's mind about being comprehensive. So I think that's going to be something that is going to be very hard to dislodge. Now, in a competitive market like the US, Homes.com is doing exactly the right thing, which is get out there, build a different experience. Because when you're in second or third place, okay, and we're not going to debate that one, when you're second, you know you're not number one, okay, you have to do something different. And yes, they're going to create buzz, but it's also going to have hallucinations. It's going to put Golden Gate into Golden Beach. It's going to give me houses in Aventura when they're not in. It's going to do things that work against what it's trying to do. Because what you're trying to do is say, trust me, I'm the brand that can take you on the buying journey. I've got all the listings. I can help you define things that you've never seen before. I can answer all your questions. But if I start giving false answers or give hallucinated answers, okay, to things I know, and everyone's going to test it, right, in their own way. They're all going to look at their own properties and go, wait a second, I didn't know. I didn't know. So the good things may get outweighed by some of the things that don't work so well. Now, as it learns, the things that don't work so well will disappear over time. So if I'm them, yes, I'm doing this. I think it's the right thing to do. I am highlighting the things that work well, which is manipulating images and all these things that you've got built into it. And then I'm working like mad in the background to fix the things that don't quite work.
Can I add firstly, I'm gonna give a tiny bit of rebuttal, which is that if I'm searching for Golden Beach, if I'm going to an agent and I'm saying I want to go live in Golden Beach, I would be slightly disappointed if the agent didn't say to me, have you thought about this neighborhood that's on the side of Golden Beach where the real estate might be slightly cheaper, but you still get all the benefits of living on Golden Beach, for example?
No.
No. You don't believe that?
Let me explain why.
Okay, then.
No, because if you're asking, let me explain. If you're, because they're agents, now this is a good example, right? The agents in Golden Beach tend to specialize on Golden Beach. Okay. But they're not specializing next door. Now but this is a unique example, but a realistic one. If you're going to live in Golden Beach, you've got to have a budget of, X million plus. But you can walk outside of Golden Beach and you can go, and that, because they're all houses, either side of Golden Beach are apartments. Okay. It's a fundamentally different experience. Okay. And that comes back to knowing the buyer. So when you and if I was the buyer's agent working for you and you're looking for a house, I'm saying, what's important? I need a house. I need a backyard. I've got kids. I need swings, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to put you into an apartment. Okay. And that comes because it's that knowledge of the area. Now, these agents have an inbuilt knowledge of the area because they've learnt the houses. And that's why the buyer's agents operate in certain areas.
But I'm going to.
So that's my rebuttal to your rebuttal.
And my final piece of rebuttal before we move on is that CoStar has said this to me precisely in the interview that we're going to be publishing next week. Is that what they basically said was we needed to train our model on lots of edge cases, and it sounds to me like Golden Beach is an edge case for a real estate search because it's a specialized search. But also we need to get it right 9.9 times out of 10. That's sort of like our goal. So it seems to me like you may have highlighted the 0.1 out of 10 that also happens to be an edge case. Maybe there are searches in New York, Texas, wherever, where the AI is actually perfectly. It's doing a great job. Basically, that's the end of it.
My rebuttal to your rebuttal, my rebuttal is no rebuttal, because I agree. This is a journey,
absolutely,
not a destination.
Absolutely.
And that's which is the point I said before, which was I'm glad they've done it. They've done it better than most people seem to have done it. It's a different to a jitty type search. Okay, who that's all they do. Right. I'm not sure their monetization model is jitty, but at least they're doing this. And most importantly, they're trying to have a different edge. So I think this is interesting. It's something that everyone's going to look at. I know they've been working on it for 6-9 months, probably a year.
15 months,
Okay.
they say. 15 months. And
15 months. There you
it's
go.
come together in the last 2 or 3 months, is what they say.
Yeah. The first time I saw this being demoed was 8 months ago, I think. Okay, and it was looking good then. This is a lot better. Yeah, and I would my recommendation is everyone go play with it. Homes.com. If you know someone in the US, get their details. If you're in the US, try it. Find out, test on your own areas. Find out what benefit it's provided you. Find out things that don't work quite right. I assume they've got a form somewhere you can say, hey, this doesn't work so well, so they can learn. There must be some AI engine on the back end to capture all the opportunities for improvement. That would be a good thing to have. And then automatically prioritize and feed them into the development cycle or the learning cycle. So super interesting.
Yeah, I realise we've just spent 25 minutes on one news topic, but genuinely,
It's interesting.
It is interesting, and it also does feel like it's a step change in how people might end up searching for a home in 5-10 years. We've been kind of talking about how it doesn't work, but we should say, and I should say, well done to Homes.com. It does feel like a genuinely useful and potentially revolutionary product.
Yep.
Obviously, whether people actually know that they can ask all these complicated questions and whether they do ask these complicated questions is something completely different. But yeah, go and play with it. It does feel like a step in the right direction. We'll move on. We've had some news, also CoStar related, from Australia. Domain is going to divest something. Harvey, why don't you tell us? You covered this one.
Yeah, sure. Ed gave the game away. We are going to see some divestments in Australia from Domain. There are a handful of assets that the portal has acquired since around 2019 onwards, dating up to around 2022, about 5 or 6 businesses. I'll spare you all the names, but a lot of agent kind of CRM workflow sort of solutions are going to be removed from Domain's portfolio in the next 12 months. Domain says they're going to try and get rid of these businesses by the end of 2026. And it looks to me like Andy Florence's big vision for Domain is starting to take shape. As expected, it is more focused on the core portal offering and not on the string of investments that Domain has made in the past few years under the ownership of Nine Media. Those are the basics, Ed. I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So you actually made a good point in your coverage of this, which was, I think, in an interview you conducted with Andy Florence, he basically said this was coming, right? Or words to that effect.
Pretty much. This was, I mean, the way that Andy said it on the record was that when you start looking at a business in closer detail, you start realizing that there are a lot of things that can become a lot cleaner and a lot leaner. And the cleanup operation is one of the first things that needed to happen at Domain to refocus it towards taking market share from realestate.com.au, basically. This was always going to happen, and now we just happen to have the names of the businesses that have been deemed surplus to requirements at Domain.
All right, thanks. So name a couple of these, we've got Campaign Track, and I'm going to ask you some questions about these, Simon, because I even after asking my friend ChatGPT about them, I'm still a little bit at a loss to describe what they do. Campaign Track, which is a kind of a campaign management tool that agents use. Real Hub, which seems to do exactly the same thing as Campaign Track, as far as I can tell. And a company called Real Time Agent, which is a kind of agent workflow productivity tool. Now, I would have thought, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, that Campaign Track and Real Hub, it's kind of a conflict of interest for Domain to have those, because what those tools are doing is recommending or tracking or making sure that the house is marketed in the right channels, right? And if you're owned by one of the major portals, that just seems like a bit of a conflict of interest to me anyway. And then an agent productivity and workflow platform? Just, I mean, it's an adjacent business. Lots of companies buy them and then get out of them, right?
Yeah. So you've got to go back in time with Domain. So Domain used to own various CRM businesses over time. Okay, My Desktop and so on. And when I was at PropTech, the PropTech group, we bought some of these tools from Domain. Okay, now, funnily enough, the amount Domain had paid. And let's go way back in time. So around 2009, 2010, 2011, they bought some of these tools, spent a lot of money. Then over the next
These ones in particular were bought between 2019 and 2022.
Yeah. But I'm getting there. Okay, so they bought these tools. They spent a lot of money, and then they sold them to us back in 2018, 17 for not very much. Okay, at a loss. Why? Because they were CRM businesses for agents. Okay, and they didn't really make sense in the overall scheme of things because you're running a software product versus running an advertising portal. Having sold them, they then go back into the wishing pool, because it is a wishing pond, right? Putting some money into the wishing pond and hoping you get a good answer out the other end, right? They've gone off and bought, is it Realbase, which they spent $180 million on. They bought, what did they buy? They bought Insight Data Solutions, which is HomePass, for $159 million. So they spent a lot of money. I've got Marnus doing my work for me in the background here. I forgot to do it earlier, right? Just tell me all the acquisitions and how much they paid for them. But it's a classic case of portals getting distracted. And I think that's what's happened in the past with Domain. They got distracted. They said, no, I'm going to go off and I can go into the software products and all these ancillary products and services for agents in the market. I can get closer to them. Okay. And then having done that, what I can then do is, get deeper into their pockets. Now, what they didn't realize is that those software products are normally relatively low margin businesses. They're very different to running an advertising business, and they become a headache. And then you always get to this point where you sell them, which is what they're doing. Okay, so they not only have done that whole loop once, they're doing the loop again. Right, the first lot was with My Desktop and whatever other products they had that we bought from them, and then they're doing it again with Realbase and Real Time Agent which was acquired, although it doesn't say the price, and so on and so on and so on. It's a bunch of these businesses.
Simon, could I jump in with a question?
And they'll probably yes, but let me finish. And they're probably going to sell them at a major loss. Right, you'll never get your money back again. Okay, because a business that's acquiring, that's excited, goes and spends a lot of money. Yeah, I can do this. I can turn them into amazing things. Then reality hits, and then you sell them for cents in the dollar because you just want to get rid of the headache. And clearly, that they're doing absolutely the right thing. None of this is a surprise. In fact, I had someone today asking me about the assets themselves because they're rolling up their sleeves, doing the work to see if they can buy some of them for cents in the dollar. Right? Because it's a seller who just doesn't want them. And history has taught us that you can probably buy them for cents in the dollar from companies who just don't want these assets. They never maximize the exit. Okay. No different to REA back in the day when it used to own Property Finder. Spent 2.5 million investing in it. 51% ended up selling it for 5 million. I think we spent and end up selling it for 300,000. Just wanted to get out of it. Now, of course, it's $1 billion business, multi-billion-dollar business.
Simon,
so that's what happens.
My question here is, I'm not sure if we necessarily need to be tarring Domain with this brush. Is this a Domain problem or is this a Nine Media problem? Would this have been pressure from Nine Media for them to diversify business, or was this Domain making the decision and Nine said, go ahead, go on then?
I would. Acquisitions like this come from management within the company.
Okay.
It's not like someone sitting in Nine Media going, "Oh, you should buy this." No, I don't want to buy it. Yes, you'll buy it. That can happen, Okay, and I know of instances where it has happened. That's how REA ended up with 25% of Realtor.com. You know, my grapevine tells me it didn't really want to buy the 25% or 20%, whatever it is, and News Corp bought the rest. But it was it was leveraged to do it. However, the bottom line is no. This would have come from someone inside of, or a group of people inside a domain back in the day, sitting down and building the strategy. Right, and the strategy was to do this. Now, what's happened is they started to execute the strategy, and it just didn't work out as planned. Okay, and the problem with these products, and I can't tell you exactly what all of them do, but a lot of them will to a certain extent be gazumped by what AI can do. So I think what you're seeing here is the what homes.com needs or CoStar needs, which is, we bought domain, we need it focused on the basics. The basics are selling, advertising to real estate agents and driving leads to them. Please remove everything that's a distraction to that major path. We're just going to make sure that and then by doing that, you become mega focused on taking on REA, probably in select markets like Sydney's eastern suburbs and so on.
Simon, I have a question. When Domain came into Australia, whenever it was, 2 years ago, a year ago now, I would imagine
CoStar domain was already there.
Sorry, when CoStar came into Australia, there would have been a lot of companies kind of adjacent to, other real estate marketplace companies or adjacent companies thinking, hooray, here's a big company that can acquire us, especially because that was kind of the tone that was underneath. It was, we're here, we're going to spend money, we're going to take on REA Group. It seems like that hope might have diminished somewhat for these companies hoping to be acquired. If you are one of these companies, and I should say I don't have any insider knowledge here, I don't know of anybody trying to get acquired, but I would assume there were companies thinking, hello, I'm going to get acquired here. How do you like go about your business differently, or how do you because a certain amount of what you do is trying to make yourself attractive to an acquirer, right? But then if the potential acquirer suddenly has this kind of change of heart, change of strategy, we got to save money or whatever, what do you do as the potential acquirer? Do you just do nothing?
So if I'm going, I really would like CoStar to buy me because I've got a business that would work for them. The question is, you've got to understand CoStar's strategy. Most important. And I've had so many people come to me and say, who? And I'll go, okay, who could you be? Invest in me. Go, why? Because we're going to grow and then we're going to sell. Or who's going to buy you? Well, ... and CoStar. CoStar always turns up in the sentence. And I'm sitting there going, no, they're probably not, right? If all, they're not, because they like to make big bets. Okay, first of all, they make big bets in markets that are attractive markets, and they've got to make sure those bets, get a chance to flow through, whether it's Matterport, whether it's on the market, whether it's Domain, and so on. Buying another business that's relatively small, let's say it's a $5 million or $10 million acquisition, becomes a headache. It has to be a real bolt-on to one of these core anchors. Think about it this way. Domain sitting in Australia. You buy Domain, boom, number 2 player. You then look at the asset and you go, okay, how do I optimize this asset? Well, I'm going to jettison all the things that are a distraction so I can focus on my residential and commercial real estate advertising business to the secondary, primary segments of the market. Okay. Everything else I don't want to deal with. I just want to really nail that because I execute that well and I can operate as a number 2 player, maybe even at a 40% EBITDA margin, maybe 30% EBITDA margin. Okay. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a lot of the technology I've developed for homes.com into that business because that's logical, right? All the stuff that we talked about earlier, the innovative voice interactive search. Okay. And that if it works in the US, it'll work in Australia. Might actually work better there because you don't have buyer's agents. So there's more reliant on the portal to be like your pseudo buyer's agent. So if you're sitting there and you're homely, you might get acquired. If you're sitting there as a software play, you're not going to get acquired because they just sold all the software, or they're selling all the software, right? They're getting out. Why would they then get back in again? It makes no sense because they've demonstrated not once but twice over the last 15 years that getting into the software business is fundamentally not a good play.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. We will move on. We have other things to cover. Harvey, there's been some acquisitions and some investment. Why don't you briefly run us down some of those that have occurred over the last week or so?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ed. We'll stay in Australia for a second. REA Group has acquired a 70% stake in the brokerage Simplicity. 70% stake for now, and a full acquisition expected by the end of 2029. REA Group already operates another brokerage called Mortgage Choice. There may be some consolidation there or some kind of synergy that REA Group has spotted.
These are mortgage brokers for clarity.
Yes.
Mortgage
Sorry,
brokers
mortgage
for clarity's
brokers,
sake.
not brokerage brokers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Otherwise we'll have the cat amongst the pigeons there. Yes, mortgage. But this is a classic case of we're trying to find our way in the mortgage business. Now, this is REA's third attempt. We had REA Home Loans back in the day. They then had a joint venture with the NAB or someone. I don't remember now. It's so long ago now, which didn't really work out. So they canned that, and then they bought, I think it was Mortgage Choice and a few others along the way, which then bought a solidified existing player with a brand in the industry, and it's about working together. So I think this clearly makes sense to. Now, this is a great case of what I talked about before. You've got a big anchor play. Now you're buying assets that enhance that anchor play and basically takes you a bit deeper.
Gut instinct, is that going to work, Simon? Do you reckon REA can finally topple mortgages?
I think that it's very hard to topple mortgages because people have direct relationship with the banks, and they'll go to. If I got a relationship with Westpac Bank, I'm going to go to Westpac Bank first. Can I get a mortgage? Okay, and then I might go to a mortgage broker. Okay, and I did this. I helped my son recently look at mortgages, and he just got one through Bank West, right? Okay, which is another bank. So the mortgage brokers, but he just, it was word of mouth. It's actually, how did we find the good mortgage broker? Was through word of mouth. Me asking some people who's a good mortgage broker who can really look after you, because that's what you want, is someone who's going to look after you and make life easy. So for me, that's how it works. They'll continue to chip away at this, but it's never going to become an equal size to its core business.
Fair.
So it's always going to be a small, nice little add-on, but
Nothing wrong with that.
interesting.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with it.
Latin America, Habi, which is an iBuyer unicorn, has purchased the actual brokerage, Pulpo. For those of you who like Spanish, Pulpo is octopus in English. Pulpo is a brokerage operating in Mexico. The expectation is that Habi wants to penetrate the Mexican market, quite an attractive space. They say that they're going to be making quite a lot of investments in the next 4 or 5 years, and they want to really solidify their position over there. Simon, you're nodding your head. Anything to add on Habi and Pulpo?
Yeah. I know. I met the guys at Harvey in their offices in Mexico City last year, maybe the year before.
Yeah, we had them at the conference last year.
I believe so.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting business. Clearly, they've got being an iBuyer and being a brokerage are different things. One needs a big balance sheet, one doesn't. And I do like your question here, but which business model has the most legs? Ha 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 ha. Right? You're a comedian.
Thank you very much.
I know. You're here all week. Yeah.
Unfortunately, no longer than 1 week.
So I think it makes sense. I know they have a chunk of money, and I think the iBuyer model is a good way to suck out that money. So you got to morph your model and moving into a brokerage, and then make that a tech-enabled brokerage makes a lot of sense. And what you're doing is buying a brand in a market.
Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, well done.
One more from me on the acquisitions and investment side. Wondome, a company that doesn't get enough flowers, but Babek has been building a good business in the UK. It's sort of like an end-to-end transaction management, home buying and selling management platform. We get the odd press release from Wondome, and it's always good news. And Wondome is set to raise around $24 million in Series C funding. Babek's a smart guy.
By the way,
Tell me.
press releases will always be
Well, true. They're not going to say, "Congratulations, we're bankrupt."
Put out, no. Everyone tries to slide that one under the carpet, right? So yes. This is good. I remember going and seeing Babek in his offices in London. A long time ago, about 4 or 5 years, maybe. That couldn't have been pre-COVID. I've lost track of my years now. And no, they're certainly doing some super interesting stuff, and one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's a really good example. So I have a spreadsheet somewhere with all of the challenger real estate portals that have started up in the UK over the years. The UK seems to be a real magnet for them. And there's a column that says reason why it failed. And almost all of them have reason why it failed, didn't scale, couldn't get traffic. Wondome's one of the very good examples of a company that started as a challenger portal that has managed to pivot into being something else successfully. It's a good example, I think, for people to look at. If you absolutely insist on building a challenger portal, which, by the way, we have an article entitled "Don't Start a Challenger Portal, Here's Why." If you insist on making a challenger portal, that's a good example to look at and potentially to follow, because they were a challenger portal and now there's something else and they've made a real success of it. Okay, gentlemen, I think we'll leave it there. Last thing to say from us, Simon, why don't you give a promo for what is coming up in almost exactly 1 month's time?
In a month's time, we have 200 people from C-level people from around the world gathering in Bangkok to discuss incredibly exciting issues such as AI, user interfaces, how AI is impacting companies. We'll talk a lot more about, does it really matter? Where will AI have the most impact on the real estate industry? Are we talking about PropTech plays, super interesting PropTech plays that are coming to the conference? I got one we signed up today who's coming, is a company called Concrete AI. And they go, what the hell is that? Well, what they do is they put Internet of Things sensors into concrete as the concrete is curing or settling. And that Internet of Sensors then gives you a bunch of information around the moisture content of the concrete, humidity, and so on, which then lets you know when that concrete has cured and is solid enough now to build the next floor of a building, which is different to the traditional approach where they used to pour it, wait a week, cut a bit off, send it to a lab. The lab would come back and say, yes, you can build your next level. Okay, so that's a company out of Singapore. Interesting business. That is PropTech at play. It's not a portal, but it's super interesting. And there are a lot of these PropTech plays that we're looking at that are AI driven. And I think if I'm sitting there as one of these portals and I'm thinking about where do I go next, and Ed may disappear, but we are still here. Okay, right. I would be going, I would be looking at all these opportunities and maybe even setting up an incubator. So the PPW conference that's happening in Bangkok from the 18th and 19th of March has super interesting discussions around how AI is shaping the PropTech industry.
Absolutely. And we're looking forward to it. And in Ed's absence, I will sign us off for this news roundup. Thank you, as always, for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. It's always fun doing these. I appreciate that this one's gone on a bit longer, but when you've got interesting things to talk about, they deserve being talked about at length. So thank you, as always,
Absolutely.
Simon, for freeing up some time to talk about AI, portals, PropTech, and everything real estate.
Oh, is there anything else in my life?
I don't know. You tell me. Maybe you need to get a hobby or two, sir.
Let's get a good night's sleep.
Maybe buy some more hats. How about that?
Oh, ha ha ha! You should see my
Yeah,
collection.
the room with 1,000 hats. Hopefully
Anyway.
you'll be back in that soon. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting up on 15 minutes, not meters, minutes. We're all starting to lose our minds here, so we'll call it an end for this one. It's goodbye from Simon Baker.
And it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.